Hey everyone, Colin here with the GameJester. In today's video, we were provided a Brawl deck by Michael, and the challenge with it was to take Kaalia the Zenith Seeker and turn it into a commander deck. We cannot remove the 60 cards that were in there. We're able to add 40 cards, and we were given a loose dollar amount of about $50, give or take some. Because everyone builds decks a little bit differently, I decided that I wanted a little bit of help from this from my dad. His name is Dave. Dad, do you want to say hi?
Hello, everybody.
My dad and I, we kind of have the same thought process and things like that when it comes to building decks, but we also vary on some spots, and that's why I brought him in, because some of the cards that he likes are a lot better for this deck than deck cards that I put in, so he has a small list of cards that he would add that are a little bit different than mine, and we just want to go through those. To start this out, we're going to go through the deck that we were provided pretty quickly, and then we're going to go through the 40 cards I would add, and then on top of that, the 8 cards that my dad said that he would like to add in addition, or to remove some other cards. So let's go through this. So Kaalia the Zenith Seeker is a 3-drop flying vigilance 3/3, but the key with Kaalia is when she enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an angel, a demon, or a dragon card and put it into your hand, and then put the rest of them on the bottom of your library in any order. So this seems like a really good tutor card for those tribes. But the kicker with this deck that we were provided is this really isn't a tribal deck for angels, demons, and dragons. It is a sacrifice deck. So it changes your thought process of how we added the cards and what we thought to do with it. And let's just go through the Brawl deck and you'll kind of understand the tweaks that Michael made with it and why we had some fun building around it. So in here, to start off, you have Cauldron Familiar. Great card. I hate playing against Cauldron Familiar in Standard because you have 4 familiars, you got 4 ovens, and they're sacking the cat multiple times. They're gaining 4 life, you're getting 4 life, and it takes so long, it is nothing but a pain to play with.
It's terrible to play against.
Unless,
Every time I see a cat hit the battlefield on Arena, all I think to myself is, there's that damn cat.
Exactly, and unless you can remove the oven. Yes, they can sack it one more time and do the cycle, but if you can remove the oven, you have a chance. If you have no way to remove the oven, you can't target the cat.
No, you got to get rid of the oven.
All right, the next one is Corpse Knight. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. So if you're tutoring things, if you're playing things, or that stupid cat coming in, you're gaining life. It gives you some more time to deal with your opponent. Justice Strike is great. It's a way to kill a creature that's got a power greater than its toughness. Kroxa. I love Kroxa. Kroxa is a fantastic card, and it should be in this deck. Even any deck that runs red-black, graveyard recursion or not, needs to run Kroxa for a 2-drop to get it out, and then you throw it in your graveyard. Unless you're destroying graveyards, including your own, Kroxa needs to be in it. It is a nasty, nasty card. It causes discarding. Whenever it attacks, it deals damage, or the opponents have to discard. It's a fantastic card.
Yep, and if you can get this out of your graveyard early enough so it stays on the battlefield, every time it attacks, it just tears people's hands apart.
Or, unless your opponent happens to have a Hushbringer onto the battlefield, then they are completely screwed, because Hushbringer causes abilities of opponents that enter the battlefield don't trigger. So if someone plays a Hushbringer, you can play a Kroxa for a 2-drop and it sticks. And they can only blame themselves.
Yes, and that's just disgusting when that happens.
Now, Priest of the Forgotten Gods, this is a really great card. You see this a lot in Sakdos, in Standard, or in other sacrifice decks. You sacrifice 2 other creatures. Sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. You add 2 black and draw a card. It's a great card. You see it hit the battlefield, you have to kill it because they're going to use it.
Yes. And you're feeding your library so you can recur Kroxa.
Exactly, yeah, you're feeding your graveyard. Yeah.
Yep.
Cruel Celebrant. Another creature or planeswalker you control dies. Each opponent loses a life, and you gain 1 life. With Brawl, all cards have to be in Standard. I'm going to add more cards that a lot like Cruel Celebrant in mine that are a little bit older, and that everyone knows what they do and hates them when they see them.
Yes, they fit into Commander perfectly.
Yeah. Arcane Signet, Mana Rock, Angrass Rampage. I love it. It's got options available to you for a 2-drop. It's great, and nothing more to add than that.
it would be more broken if you could pay a kicker cost and activate it more than once.
Oh, so like if you could pay the red, the black, and then like 3, and then you can choose all 3?
Or even just 2. You know, let's say you paid a kicker of an extra 4 and you selected a second one, and if you paid a kicker of an extra 8, which is a lot, you could select all 3.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Tajik Legion's End, fantastic card. The fact that you can pay a red and a white and give them first strike is fantastic, but the mentor ability, that's nice. I mean, Tajik's a great card. I had a commander deck with him as the commander. The fact that all prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures you control is great.
Yes, that's nice.
But people with Tajik being a 2-drop, you can shock him and then he's gone, which sucks.
He's easily removed, but while he's there, he protects everything else.
Exactly. You have to take that extra step to remove him before you remove anything else.
Yep.
Chance for Glory, it is great. For a 3-drop card, it is a little broken if you have a board state that can swing again and deal some damage. Otherwise, you lose the game.
You gotta hope that something doesn't happen there where you don't end the game.
Yeah.
Because you will lose the game.
You're lucky you play that and someone's going to play Settle the Wreckage and exile all your creatures.
Yep. Or to Teferi's protection on themselves, and then...
You lose anyways.
Yeah, you lose anyways.
Yeah. Judith the Scorch Diva. She is great because all other creatures get +1/+0. Whenever a non-token creature dies, she deals 1 damage to any target. So with this deck sacrificing a lot of creatures and things like that, the pinging help is so great. Because if you use the Priest of the Forgotten Gods to sacrifice 2 creatures, well, now you deal 2 damage with Judith.
Yep.
Mayhem Devil is such a pain, and a lot of time it is paired with Cauldron Familiar, because whenever you sacrifice a permanent, it deals 1 damage to any target. Well, then you tap the oven to sacrifice the cat, there's 1 ping, and then you sacrifice the food token to bring the cat back, so there's 2 pings. I mean, it's a 3/3 for 3. It's a really, really good card.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, no.
Playcrafter. Awesome card. It immediately, if you're playing a Voltron deck or anything like that, it requires each player sacrifice a creature or a planeswalker. So, I mean, yes, you have to sacrifice something, but running a sack deck, this is cake for you. This is no problem.
Yep.
And even if you sacrifice Playcrafter, then you played 3 mana for each opponent to destroy a creature or a planeswalker. Yep. The libation. Each target opponent sacrifices a creature. Target opponent sacrifices an enchantment. Woe Strider. So what's really nice about this card is if you have some gain control of cards, you can gain control of the creature, swing with it, and then you can sacrifice it and then scry 1. So you can take the threat, hit an opponent with it, then sacrifice their creature and then scry 1.
It gives you a goat creature that you can sacrifice, a sacrificial goat for later.
Yes.
Because you hate to sacrifice your good critters. It's nice to make 0/1s be the sacrificial lamb.
Exactly. Or if they're running a non-trample deck, nothing like blocking a giant 6/6 or 8/8 with an 0/1. Oath of Kaalia. Yep. When it enters the battlefield, deals D3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. Whenever an opponent attacks a planeswalker you control with 1 or more creatures, deals 2 damage to that player, and you gain 2 life. It's a pretty good protection card. It also can remove some small threats.
Yep.
Feather. I personally hate Feather because there's so many 1-drop red and white cards that you can target Feather with or other creatures that it's just gross.
But looking through this deck list, you can see that Feather is in here solely as a 3-drop, 3/4 flyer. The deck is not loaded up with red-white instant and sorceries that you can target Feather with.
Yep, you are right. I get what you're saying.
It has a few in the deck that you could target the Feather and get a second occurrence of it, but not much. So it's mainly in here as a 3/4 flyer from what I could see.
Yeah, and because it's an angel, you can pull it with Kaalia if needed.
Right.
Embodiment of Agonies. This one is it's a hard one to cast, but I understand exactly why it's there. It's a Flying Death Touch, enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each different mana cost among non-land cards in your graveyard. For example, a 2 and black and a 1 and 2 are different mana costs. You want this card late game. You want your graveyard full. And then this thing can come out as a monster.
Yes. Yes.
Kaya's Wrath. Destroy all creatures. You gain life equal number of creatures you control that were destroyed this way. With it being a sacrifice deck and life gain decks and all that, you're gonna to do this is gonna hurt your opponent more than it's gonna hurt you. Doom Foretold. This is a really good card. Me personally, I don't like it because it hurts the person who casts it as well. But I understand with this deck, it's not that big of a deal. Beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-land, non-token permanent. If they can't, they discard a card. They lose 2 life, and you draw a card and gain 2 life, and create a 2/2 Night token with Vigilance. Then you sacrifice this. So every upkeep, they have to sacrifice something, or they have to discard a card, and you get a 2/2 token. And this keeps going around the table and around the table, and someone does not have something to sacrifice.
And it's a nice sack engine for you. It's a sack outlet.
It is.
Your whole purpose of this deck, once it's set up right on the battlefield, you want to sacrifice a few of your things, because you're going to be pinging the opponent when you sacrifice things. Correct. So it does a good thing for you in this deck.
All right. Outlaw's Merriment. So this card is great for creating creatures. Every turn you can create new creatures. And at the beginning of your upkeep, choose one at random, create a red and white creature token with these characteristics. Every turn you're making a creature. So if you have a perpetual block, if you have a big creature that's attacking you, every turn you're going to have a perpetual creature to block with. And some of the things they do. Go ahead.
Some of them have some very good keywords that go with them, but again, every upkeep you're making another potential sackable creature for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, though, the lifelink and haste is really nice. And then when this creature enters the battlefield, deal 1 damage to any target. The fact that you're choosing at random kind of sucks, but yeah. Bones for Blood. So this is a great card. As additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, then return another card from your graveyard to your hand. You sacrifice a creature and you can get 2 creatures back.
Yep.
I mean, now you have to be kind of picky and choosy about creatures that you get back. Like, you don't want to get Croxa back to the graveyard because you didn't cast it. So you have to be a little picky and choosy. But further on this list, you're going to see Nightmare Shepard. If you see this as in your hand and you have Kaalia out and you want to block and kill Kaalia, you can get her back and you can sacrifice a small creature to do so.
Yep.
Wrankle. Wrankle is a really, really good card. It is a huge pain. It's a flying haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose any number. Each player discards a card. Each player loses 1 life and draws a card. Each player sacrifices a creature. Yet again, you can make everyone sacrifice creatures. And Wrankle with flying and haste is a great card to bring back at any point in time because he's got haste. And you just got to pop it in and you can draw cards, you can sacrifice creatures, you can do whatever you want to do.
Another one of those cards I love to have in my decks, but I just hate to see them hit the battlefield.
Exactly. And with so much easy removal and things like that, a 4-drop for a 3/3, he does so much, but he is such a good card. And it's great to have, but you hate to see him. It's like Dreadhorde Butcher. It's a cheap card, but if you see your opponent play it, you're like, oh, I got to get rid of that soon, now. But I know as soon as I get rid of it, I'm going to get hit with something.
Yep.
Seraph of the Scales. This is another great card. Flying. You can pay a white, you can give it vigilance, you can pay a black, give it death touch, and it's got afterlife too. So if it does die, if you do sacrifice it, you get 2 1/1 spirit, black and white spirit creature tokens.
2 more creatures out of the battlefield for your triggers, and potentially 2 more sacrificial lambs.
Exactly. Now, the one thing about this deck that I know you hate, and we're going to dig into this a little bit. With this deck, you can potentially block a creature and then sacrifice the creature before combat damage is dealt.
Why'd you have to bring that up? My pet peeve.
It is, and I think it's really funny because it stops everything but things with trample.
Yes. But to me, it doesn't make sense with the mechanics. You declare your attacker, you declare a blocker, and then combat happens. And when combat happens, if that blocker has been sacrificed, it's not there. I should not continue to be blocked. It's not right.
Yep. The thing is, though, if that was the way the rules were, the cat would not be around at all.
Exactly. The way the rules are written, it has allowed so many broken things to happen in Magic. If the rules weren't the way they were, the gameplay would be a little more straightforward, and you wouldn't have these broken one-drop cats.
But you get to put the cat in the oven and bake it.
Yeah,
and you get a food token.
Yep.
Call it Chinese food.
I'm done ranting. I won't rant on that anymore.
It's all good. I know that's your trigger, and I think it's really funny because I understand both sides of it, but I agree with what you're saying. All right. Now the final list before we get into mine is Arula, Exemplar of Justice. Amazing card. The fact that you can, at the beginning of your combat phase, choose a creature. Until end of turn, that creature gets +2/+0 and trample if it's red or vigilance if it's white. If you choose her, she gets +2/+0 and vigilance. So, I mean, and trample. Yeah, she's
trample and vigilance. Yep.
Yeah, she's an amazing creature.
Yes.
And the Kaalia trigger can pull her out, and when she comes out, it's another one of those cards that you go, God damn, how am I gonna get rid of this thing?
Yep.
And to tie everything in together with the sacrifice deck is Nightmare Shepard. I think Nightmare Shepard should be legendary. That's me. But whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 and it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. You sacrifice a creature, you exile it, it comes back. So you have your sacrifice triggers that happen and your creature enter the battlefield triggers that happen.
And I agree, it should be legendary. In a modern deck or a standard deck, if you have 2 copies on the battlefield, 2 of these, you're making 2 copies of each creature you just sacrificed.
Yes.
It's potentially very broken.
Yes, it is. And a thing is, though, and I know this iffy on the deck, but if you were to play Kroxa and have this on the battlefield, you could potentially play Kroxa, get Kroxa back, play Kroxa, and each opponent either has to discard 2 cards or take 6 damage for 2 mana.
Let me look at Kroxa quick. Yes,
enters the
you are
battlefield.
correct.
Yeah.
Because you have to sacrifice it. Yes.
Exactly. So
broken.
2 triggers on Kroxa for 2 damage. Another card I love this card in standard, and it's Spawn of Mayhem. It's got Spectacle, which is fantastic. You deal damage, you pay 2 black and whatever else you want to play, and it's a flying trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player, and then if you have 10 or less life, put a 1/1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem. This thing is so big. If you get this out turn 3, on turn 3, you have a turn 4 after Summoning Sickness. You have a 4/4 flyer with trample, and each turn, if you have a stalemate game going on, each turn you're pinging for damage yourself as well. But if you're below 10, it's getting 1/1 counters. So if all goes well and nothing happens, you could have an 8/8 flying trampler. It's a great card. God Eternal Bantu. So Bantu is a really good creature. It's a god, so I mean that's why it's mythic. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of other permanents, then draw that many cards. So that hits your sack outlets. When it dies or put it in the exile from the battlefield, you may put it on top of its owner library, 3rd from the top. That's part of the god parts from War of the Spark. If this dies or gets kicked out or whatever, you can put it 3rd from the top. So if that's the case, you keep making tokens and creatures and things like that, and 3 turns later, you get Bantu back. And
until somebody makes you or shuffle your graveyard or your library.
Yes. Angel of Grace. Until end of turn, when Angel of Grace enters the battlefield, until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1. The flash part of this is what's really key.
That's the key to it.
Yes, if you're about to die to lethal damage and just get destroyed, you flash this in, you stay at 1 life. Then next turn, you pay 1 more mana, your life total becomes 10. And then you get rid of it.
You have to flash it in, and it has to die. It has to go to your graveyard. The way I've played this in games is the opponent attacks, you know you have enough damage there that's going to kill you. You don't sacrifice any other blockers, flash this in, block with it, make sure it dies. Your life total goes to 1 instead of dying. Now it's in your graveyard. And then the next turn, when you mana, you exile it for 6, and now you get your life total becomes 10.
Okay.
So you actually go from losing the game to having a life of 10 in. It'd be nice to be able to do it in 2 rounds or 1 round, but you can't. It's a lot of mana to do it in 1 round. You got to be able to do it in 2.
But we have cards that will help fix. Well, we have 1 card specifically that will help fix mana. Yeah.
Yep.
And then this card paired with Nightmare, with so many of these other creatures, is kind of broken. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance are created instead. So anything with afterlife makes 4/4 angels. I want to read this quick. Create a token, Nightmare Shepard. Anything that happens with Nightmare Shepard now makes a 4/4 angel.
Yep.
That's good or bad based on the abilities the creatures have.
Yes.
Doom Whisperer. 5-drop, Flying Trample. You can pay 2 life and Surveil. With black, life is a resource. If you win at 1 or you win at 100, you still win.
Yes, life is a resource.
And with Surveil, you can put cards into your graveyard. So you're feeding your graveyard for
You're
cards.
feeding your graveyard. You're potentially feeding your Embodiment of Agonies.
Blood for Bones. You can return a big creature from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Yes.
You're also feeding it for the Kroxa escape cost.
Yes. Yep. It's multiple purposes.
Yep. Also, it's a 6/6 Flying Trample. That's a big creature.
That's always an upside.
Yeah. Ethereal Absolution. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-1. You can pay 4 at any point in time. 2, a black, a white, and then 2. And you can exile target card from opponent's graveyard. If it was a creature card, create a 1/1 black and white spirit token with flying. Once again, Divine Visitation, that becomes a 4/4 angel.
A 4/4.
Liliana Dreadhorde General. There is a great commander. Whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card. Well, sack deck, you're going to be drawing a lot of cards.
Lots of cards.
You bump it 1, you make a 2/2 zombie creature token. Well, the 2/2 zombie creature token's great, it's a blocker. But if this deck is working how it was with Divine Visitation out, you're getting a 4/4 angel instead. Its neg 4 is each creature sacrifices 2 creatures. Each player sacrifices 2 creatures. Well, you're feeding right into your sack deck and your plans for how this deck should work, and you're hurting your opponents. Because if your deck is not built around sacrificing or building tons and tons of tokens, it sucks to have to sacrifice 2 creatures.
Yep.
And then the alt on this card is stupid. Each opponent chooses a permanent type they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. So that's 1 land, 1 creature, 1 artifact, 1 enchantment, 1 planeswalker. Everything else goes. That is land destruction, and I know someone who hates land destruction in Magic.
Yes.
Yeah, I love land destruction.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah, I know you do.
Let me play Magic.
I get what you're saying. Parhelion 2. So this is when I saw this in here, I was kind of surprised, but now that I see it and read it, I understand exactly what it does. Flying, yes. First strike, vigilance. Whenever it attacks, create a create 2 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance.
That are attacking.
Yeah, that are attacking. That you're making tokens. The thing is, though, that kind of negates the divine visitation with it because they're both 4/4, so that doesn't really matter. But they're attacking. If anything dies, you get your sack outlets. You get your creatures entering and leaving the battlefield triggers. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yes.
But the crew cost is 4, which is a lot less than I think it should be. For everything you're getting out of this, flying, first strike, and vigilance. I mean, yeah.
A 5/5 flying, first strike, vigilance. That with it comes 2 4/4 angels.
But the CMC is 8.
Yes.
So
you got to save up for that for a while.
Yeah. And then the last card is Velas, Broker of Blood, flying 8/8. So it's an 8-drop 8/8 with flying. And you can pay a black, pay 2 life, and target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn. Whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. So, I mean, it's a good creature, good abilities, and card advantage is great.
Yes. Especially in black.
Yes. And then we're just going to skim through the land really quick. A lot of them are basics, but we have the shock lands of the appropriate color, the scry lands or temples of the appropriate color, and then the, what was the other one? We got shock lands, and then the guild gates of the appropriate color that just come in tapped. So to help with a little bit of mana fixing, and of course, command tower. You cannot not have command tower or any card like it. So that was the deck we were provided by Michael, and I added 40 cards with a $50 budget to it. We're going to go through that next. All right, so we're going to go through the lands really quick. I added 10 lands, so that gave me 30 cards to deal with. I added 5 swamps, 2 plains, 4 mountains, because I went heavy on black. With the graveyard and all that stuff, I thought that was important, and to keep leaning into that. First card I added, necessary, Soul Ring. Turn 1 Soul Ring, you get free mana. It's a commander deck, you have to have Soul Ring.
Can you play Commander without a Soul Ring?
You can.
You can.
Well, you can, but the issue with it is you know the person who gets turn 1 Soul Ring is immediately the target for the game.
Yeah, but it's so versatile. It's worth it.
Oh, I completely agree. But if you turn 1 Soul Ring into a Swiftfoot Boots and then you go off from there, as a Krinko player, I have multiple times turned 1 Soul Ring to the Swiftfoot Boots, and I knew at that point I was the target when people knew that Krinko was my commander. But
the minute they saw Krinko was your commander, they were the target.
Yep, and they were not able to kill me by turn 5, and then I killed the table. So it happens.
Yep.
All right. Yep. Next, Omen of the Dead. Flash. When this enters the battlefield, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. You can pay 2 and a black, sacrifice Omen of the Dead, scry 2. This helps you get cards back from your graveyard. For 1 mana, you get a card back from your graveyard.
Yep.
With Flash. Can't argue with that. If someone's about to exile a graveyard or anything like that, you can flash it in. Dragon Master Outcast. So this kind of leans a little bit into the dragon tribal part of this. Also the fact that we're going to be wanting a lot of land. This card is ridiculous. You never play it early because as soon as it's out there and people read what it does, they watch how many lands you have and then they kill it because it's a 1/1. Beginning of your upkeep, if you control 6 or more lands, put a 5/5 red dragon creature with flying onto the battlefield. Protect this. That's it. Just protect it. Keep getting 5/5 dragons.
Even if you get just 1 or 2 dragons off it, it's worth it.
If you get 1 dragon off of it for 1 mana, you can't argue with that. Just be smart. No. If it's in your hand, let it sit till you get 6 mana. Don't
just so that 5/5 dragon doesn't end up coming out as a 4/4 angel.
Yes, then you have to play that around. But also every turn, if you get a 4/4 angel, that's not bad.
That's not a bad thing. No.
Yeah. Next one is a card that I love. This card. It is such a pain in the ass, and it is fantastic. If you have a competitive game going, or you have that person that's just annoying and they counter everything, or you just want to screw with someone, tap it. Look at target player's hand for 1 mana. I mean, it's a 1 mana card. Tap it. Let me see what's in your hand. What do you got there? And
What do you got there?
it is amazing. I really, really like it. It's a lot of fun, and it's an old card that people do not expect people to play.
It's the psychological effect that it does on certain people. It can turn them so salty.
Oh, yes.
This is my hand. Why do you want to look at my hand every round?
Yeah. I know. I completely I agree with that, because you can have, and also there's a lot more to this than a lot of people say, because look at target player's hand. I can lie about what's in the hand. I can be truthful about what's in the hand. Depending on where the threat statuses are, I know what is in that other person's hand and the rest of the table doesn't. If I share or if I manipulate what's in there, it's very interesting with the politics of the game.
Yes, I agree.
All for 1 mana. All right, Fragmentize. You got to have some sort of artifact or enchantment removal. This one's 4 or less. You can blow up a Soul Ring if you want to with this. It's a really good card. If you're playing against an artifact deck or even an enchantment deck, it's just a good card, and you need some sort of removal in the game for artifacts and enchantments.
Yes.
Banefire. All right, what's one of the cards you're going to be seeing a little bit, which is, yes, Smothering Tithe is in this deck, and that's where most of my a solid chunk of my budget of $50 went to, because Smothering Tithe is ridiculous. Banefire deals X damage to any target. It's 1 and then X. It doesn't matter what color the X is for the generic mana. And then if X is 5 or more, this spell can't be countered and the damage can't be prevented. You Banefire for 15, and you can't do much about it.
Nope. Yeah. You could use it to remove the immediate threat, or you can use it to remove the player.
Exactly. Thud. All right.
Thud.
With this being a sacrifice deck, graveyard recursion, all that stuff, additional cost to sacrifice this deck, it's additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Thud deals damage equal to sacrifice creature's power to any target. Well, Embodiment of Agonies is an 8/8. Depending on where Spawn of Mayhem is at, it's a 5/5 plus. I mean, or if you just want to ping at the end, you have someone or a creature or something that's just a pain, you sacrifice a token. It's pretty much that simple.
The whole deck is set up to sacrifice things as it is. Why not get some extra benefit out of it?
Exactly.
Either you thud them or you fling them.
Exactly. And then, if you have certain cards, like you can Thud with your Kaalia, and then you can play Bones for Bloods and get Kaalia back same turn, because Thud is a 1-drop. And then, when Kaalia enters the battlefield, so with Kaalia in the command zone, you pay 3 mana. You play Thud, you get Kaalia in the graveyard, then you play Blood for Bones. In 1 turn, you can have Kaalia triggered twice.
Yes.
And that's nice. All right, Disentomb, 1-drop, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. More recursion. Unearth, same exact thing, except for a converted mana cost of 3 or less, and then it has the cycling ability. I mean, there's not much cycling triggers in this deck like the Fox, but cycling's nice. If you have everything you need and you don't want to, and you don't need this card, then cycle it, draw another one.
Yep.
Mutiny. I like this card for a 1-drop. Target creature an opponent controls deals damage equal to its power to another target creature that player controls. If they have a Death Toucher or they have anything like that, they can kill their commander, they can kill the threat, they can do whatever they want to. And you can do that with 1 red mana.
Yep. You brought a real nice deck there, buddy. How about we let you kill your own creatures with your own creatures?
Exactly. Oh, you have a 1-drop Death Toucher and you have a Crater Hoof Behemoth? Well, your Death Toucher is going to get real personal with your Crater Hoof Behemoth there.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Blood Artist. Because we are in a sacrifice-built deck, I had to put Blood Artist in. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. Well, anything dies, including Blood Artist, because it does see itself. You gain a life, opponent loses a life. You do a board wipe. You attack, you block, you do anything where a creature dies or an opponent's creature dies. Blood Artist stacks up. You do a board wipe with Blood Artist out there, it's easy going to be a 10 life swing. It's just it's a fantastic one. But if you get Blood Artist out early, prepare for Blood Artist to die or for the opponent to realize what exactly your deck is about. Because you're not going to play Blood Artist unless you have a sack deck. Fling, exactly like Thud, except for at instant speed. Walk the Plank. Now, with this deck, I did put in some removal because it's very important. And with the colors we had, I had to be kind of picky and choosy about the removal. Walk the Plank. Destroy target non-merfolk creature. It doesn't matter if it's legendary, it doesn't matter anything, as long as it's not a merfolk. If you come up against a merfolk player and you draw Walk the Plank, I apologize, and I guarantee you it will not happen again. Because, I mean, it's just way too situational. And 2-drop to remove a commander or anything, it's really good.
Yes. I'll gamble on Walk the Plank in my deck that I'm not playing up against a merfolk deck.
Exactly.
You're not seeing many of those. You're not seeing many of those like you did when Ixalan first came out.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the thing is that when Ixalan came out, this was such a gamble because there was so much merfolk.
Right.
But in Commander and Modern, it's not that big.
Right. It's well worth the gamble.
Yes. Rakdos' Return. I love this card. It's got hand disruption. It deals damage. It's a red, a black, and then X. Deals X damage to target opponent, and that player discards X cards. It's gross. It's nasty, and I love it.
Yep.
Dreadbore. 2-drop, a red, a black. A destroy target creature, planeswalker. I had to put it in there. The only issue with this card is its sorcery speed, but it's so worth it that I couldn't not put it in here.
When somebody's planeswalker comes out, you let it does what it's going to do for one turn. When it gets back around to you, you can get rid of it if you need to.
Yep, you had your fun. Your toy did what you wanted. Now, throw it away.
Right.
Or an Ajani's Pridemate or anything like that, because I hate Ajani's Pridemate with passion.
Quit picking on my Pridemate.
I know you love Ajani's Pridemate, and I can't stand it. Just can't do it. Zulaport Cutthroat. It's like Blood Artist, except for it's creatures you control. So it's not as good as Blood Artist, but it's a really good card. And if you have Zulaport Cutthroat out and Blood Artist out, double triggers anytime anything dies, that's yours. So, yeah. Harsh Mentor. This card is so good in Commander. I know it's not a demon, angel, or dragon. It's just for a 2-drop in Commander. This card does so much work that people are going to do everything they can to remove it. Artifact decks, everyone is going to try to remove this. Because whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, if it isn't a mana ability, Harsh Mentor deals 2 damage to that player. That shuts down so many decks.
Yes.
If you have a combo deck out, or if you're playing a Krinko player, you're going to ping them 2, 3, 4 times a turn.
Yes.
It's just gross. And if someone combos off or anything like that, they might kill themselves with your Harsh Mentor.
And when you go to tap your Glasses of Urza, and I've got Harsh Mentor out, I'm going to ask you, is it really worth it 2 life to look at my hand?
If you said it to me, I would definitely say yes, because I think you're hiding something. But then you show me a mitt full of land, and then you laugh.
Yep. I wouldn't do that to you.
Every single time I get a card that lets me look at someone's hand, it's land.
It's land.
It's land. You know, the amount of times where you pull something worthwhile, it's not like you're playing Modern, you're playing Commander, all right? People are keeping 5 landers out the gate. Never play a show someone your hand in Commander before turn 6. All right, Altar's Reap. As additional cost to cast this card, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. Sack outlet, card draw. That's for 2 mana.
Yep.
Torment of Hailfire, one of the dirtiest cards in Magic, and I absolutely love it. It's worse than Banefire. 2 black and X. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. It's gross.
It's terrible.
It really is. It really is.
you sit there and you look at your board state, you look at your hand, and you say, okay, I'm not going to discard this one, so that's 3 damage. I can't sacrifice that, so that's going to be 3 damage. And you're doing math, and it's like, all right, fine. I'll lose 9 life and sacrifice 4 creatures.
Exactly, and it's such a game-altering card. And
Yes.
with Smothering Tide that we're getting to, you can ramp this up so fast because every time around the table, you're drawing 3 cards. If you're playing a control player or a Wheels deck, Smothering Tide is priceless to you. And I know this because I have a Wheels deck, and my Smothering Tide has been at 30+ mana. So, I mean, it's an instant. Torment of Hairflyer's nasty.
Yes.
Doomblade. Destroy target non-black creature. That 2-drop instant removal. The caveat is non-black. That, I'll take that risk.
Yeah, but you got to get them big green stompies off the battlefield somehow.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. One of my favorite steel cards is Goat Nap. The odds of it. Okay, so for 3 mana, there are a lot of gain control of target creature cards until end of turn. But yes. I like this one for the chance that they're playing with goats.
Goats.
If they're playing with goats, it gets +3/+0 until end of turn. I would love to steal a goat and smack someone with the goat.
If there was a goat on the battlefield and it's a 1/1, and there is a normal big 6/6 creature on the battlefield, are you going to steal the man's goat, or are you going to steal his big critter?
100% dependent on the board state.
Of course it is, but you really want to steal that goat.
Oh, I want to steal the goat. Yeah.
And goat is such a it's the in tribe right now.
Oh, everyone's running goat decks.
Everybody's running goat decks. Yeah.
But also with Shepard of Woe, where what's the card that when it enters the battlefield you create an 0/1 goat that we have in this deck? Can't remember what it's called offhand.
Yeah.
You can steal your own goat and pump it. That's right.
I don't think I'd waste Goat Nap on my own goat.
No, but you would take someone's commander and smack them with it.
Oh, I love that.
Yep. I'm gonna borrow your Zakama for a minute. It'll just be a second.
Yep, just for a second.
Yeah. Act of Treason, same thing, except for it doesn't have the bump for goats, so it's not as good. Victimize. It's not as good. It clearly is not as good. It does the same exact thing, except for it doesn't have the goat trigger.
I don't think the goat trigger is even on the scale, Colin. I wouldn't even consider that a bump.
If you had 1 slot in your deck left, and you were stuck between Act of Treason or Goat Nap, which one would you take?
I'd probably play Act of Treason because it's just, I don't know. It's more normal. Goat Nap is just
it's jank and degenerate.
I like goblins, so maybe I'd put Goat Nap in.
Okay. I would always choose Goat Nap.
Yes, I would too. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah. Next one is Victimize. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. Sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards from to the battlefield tapped. You pay 3 mana, you sack a creature, you get 2 creatures back on the battlefield.
Yep.
That's nasty.
Yes.
Smothering Tide. This card is worth more than its weight in gold because paper is not very heavy, and I don't think the gold cost of Smothering Tide is very good. So, but this card, if you're playing any card deck with white, you might want to see if you have room for this. Unlimited mana. If you're interested in unlimited mana, almost play this card.
And it's one of those things. Are you going to pay the 2? Are you going to pay the 2? Are you going to pay the 2? It's a white Ristic study.
It is very much the white Ristic study.
Yes.
And the thing is, though, with this card, like, I know this is not a Wheels deck, but I have this in my Wheels deck. And if you wheel and you have 3 other players, let's say, that's 21 cards. You could make 21 treasure tokens. in one turn. So you just have 21 more mana. With that 21 mana, you can probably wheel again. So
yes.
It's disgusting.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a very good card. White needed all the help it could get.
White does need help. Yeah. All right. Nevin Leroy's Disc enters the issue with this card is it enters the battlefield tapped, but I get why it does. But you pay 1, you tap it, destroy all artifacts, enchantment, creatures, and enchantments.
It's too big of a threat to not give the rest of the players one round to either know it's there and active or to deal with it.
Yep.
If this came out live and active, it's a reset card for the game.
I get that, but also in this deck there's Kaya's Wrath, destroy all creatures for 4 mana. Same amount of mana, and you gain life equal to the number of creatures that you control. This one, because it hits artifacts and enchantments as well, I see that.
Yes.
But it's a really good I have the big gun card. And it's instant speed.
You guys leave me alone and fight amongst yourselves for a couple rounds, and it won't go off.
Yep.
But if you...
Go ahead.
If you even look at me out of the corner of your eye, I'm going to activate it.
Yep. Or I dare you to try and remove my artifact. I got 1 mana.
Right. And I will always have 1 mana.
Yeah, exactly. I will always have 1 mana. Diabolic Tutor. I had to find room for a tutor in here, and this is a nice, reasonably priced tutor. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. It is a 4-drop, but you can go get whatever you need. My recommendation, go get Smothering Tithe.
And you go get it, and you don't have to show it to me.
Yes, that is another perk of this card versus some of the other tutors.
And it's what, 1/100th the price of Vampiric Tutor and all the other high dollar tutor cards?
Yes, like Demonic Tutor right now, I think, in my opinion, Demonic Tutor is my favorite tutor. It's a 2-drop, and you go get whatever you want. You don't have to reveal, you don't do anything, but it's like a $40 card.
And that's why it's so expensive, yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Fell the Mighty. This one is fantastic with Blood Artist. For reason being, destroy all creatures with greater power than target creature. Blood Artist is a 0.
Yes.
You get
that's
every
if you
single
want to
trigger.
wipe the board. And that's if you want to wipe the board. If you want to wipe everybody else's, you just pick the majority of the cards that are higher than some of yours.
Yes. If you might you might lose a couple creatures, but yes, to keep a lot of yours going on.
You end up with a board state after it.
Exactly, and it hurts everyone else. But if it's end game or you're hurting on life, hit that reset button, trigger or choose Blood Artist, and just gain some life.
Yep.
The token player will hate you. Dictate of Erebos. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. It has flash. This is a fantastic card, especially because the Blood Artist triggers. But every time you sacrifice a creature, it dies. Your opponent has to sacrifice a creature. So you're thinning the herd quickly, especially if you have angels out or you have a way to start making these tokens that this deck is making. It really helps clear the board out.
And I would venture a guess that between Smothering Tithe and Dictate of Erebos, you pretty much spent most of your $50 on those two.
Torment of Hailfire was $7.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Torment of Hailfire is expensive due to what it does. But
yes,
you are correct. Most of my money is in 2 cards. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, this is an expensive card as well. This one was like $4 or $5. Obs Nicholas Unshackled. This card is just gross. It's disgusting. And in Commander, with everyone searching their deck so often, I had to put it in here. 4/4 Flying Trample. Whenever an opponent searches his or her library, that player sacrifices a creature and loses 10 life. Whenever another creature dies, put a 1/1 counter on Ob Nixilis.
It makes you decide whether or not your Evolving Wilds is worth 10 life to go get that land.
Yep, any land matters deck
Yep.
is thinking, oh, do I need this? Omnath, do I need those tokens that badly?
Yes, I do. Omnath needs them.
Coming from an Omnath player, you always need it. But you go get 4 lands. I mean, how many lands can you go get in one turn with Omnath?
Myself, I think the most I've had is 8 or 9 lands hit the battlefield in one turn.
See, you're dead.
I would be. Yeah, I would be dead.
You would not go get those lands.
No, I wouldn't. You'd have to deal with Ob Nixilis first.
Yeah. All right. And then the last card I added was Steel Hellkite. It is a dragon, so it goes off of the trigger of Kaalia, but this card is so good, and in my mind, it is super underrated in Commander. It's a flyer. It's for 6 mana, you get a 5/5 flyer. You pay 2. It gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Here's the key for Steel Hellkite. You can pay X and destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost of X, whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. So if they have a bunch of 3/3s out there, you swing with this, then you pay 3 mana, and they sacrifice all of them. Here's the real kicker with Steel Hellkite. If X equals 0, all tokens die.
All tokens die.
I think you have to declare that you're choosing 0 to target tokens, but if X equals 0, all tokens die. The token player and all, will hate you. If someone has Zakama out and you happen to be able to play Steel Hellkite and get around Zakama, you can pay 9, destroy Zakama. I mean, hitting any number is going to hurt an opponent. And Steel Hellkite's a great card.
The only downside to it is it has to deal combat damage to the player.
Yes.
So it has to get through. It doesn't have trample. So it's situational. It's not going to get through too often.
Yep, I understand that. And I agree with that. It's just, if it does, it's nasty.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And that's all of my cards. Now we're going to go over to the cards that you put in. I'm going to go ahead and say the cards because Aether Hub put them in a alphabetical order.
Okay.
All right. So the first one is Draxuth, Maw of Flames.
The cards that I picked to put in synergize with the commander a little bit. All the cards I picked are either angels, demons, or in there to synergize with the commander. They also can synergize with the rest of this deck a little bit. When Drakuseth attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to up to 2 other targets. It's going to help you remove your opponent's creatures, and if it's situational enough, you can kill some of your own with it.
No, this definitely is a really, really good card.
It is. And the one thing I'm going to say is the cards I'm looking at, I didn't look at mana cost. And the budgetary of them, they're all under $4 or $5 a piece. So I tried to stay within a little bit of a budget. And with that, you're going to have the higher mana cost cards.
Yes, because if high mana cost cards were super expensive, no one would play them.
Right. I've had Drakuseth out in other decks. You just hate to see it on the battlefield. Every time it attacks, there is 10 damage going to get divided up somewhere.
Yep.
Plus, it's a 7/7. If you could afford to cast it, it's a beast that's got to get dealt with.
Exactly. It's one of those where once it hits the battlefield, you need to deal with it before it attacks.
And I like putting things out on the battlefield that force people to deal with that when that's actually not what I'm really worried about. I'm worried about something else. It's watch this hand, deal with it while this other hand is sneaking something in that's going to end up doing worse damage to you.
I get that. And this definitely stops the game. It's like if you have a good game going and someone drops a 1-1 death toucher on the table, that game stops for a little while.
Yes. Yes.
Except for this stops the game because it deals 10 damage plus the 7/7 it's swinging for.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Next is Amira Shepard.
Amira Shepard. Again, a big 7-drop. It's a 4/4 flying. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If the land is a plains, you may return the non-land permanent card to the battlefield instead.
Yep.
We're filling our graveyard with creatures. I like ways to get them back. It's an angel, so you can get it with your commander. And then whenever a land comes, now all these creatures that we sacrificed, we can start to get a few of them back. And if it happens to be a plains, you get it right back to the battlefield for free.
And that is gross.
That is... It's gross if you're sitting across the table from it.
Yeah. So who said white needed help? Because this is...
It's a 7-drop. It needs... If this was a 5-drop, it would be really bad. But it's a 7-drop, so it costs you to play it.
I get that. All right. Harvester of Souls.
Yes. 4 generic and 2 black for 5/5 death touch. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. It's a big death toucher. I like those because they stick around a little longer. I can kill your 3/3s and 4/4s, and mine still's here. If I do need to take something big down with it, it will. But the best part is that whenever another non-token creature dies, yours or mine, I get to fill my hand back up.
Yep. Yeah. No.
And with black, you need to keep your hand full.
Exactly. Oh, this is one that's really good. I agree with this card. Restoration Angel.
Restoration Angel. One of my lower casting cost ones here. It's a 4-drop for 3/4 with flash and flying. When Restoration Angel enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. It's so nice to flicker.
Yep. Flickering is nice.
I looked through the original deck and your deck, your editions. There are 9 cards in here that the enter the battlefield effects are worth flickering. So if I can flicker, I have the possibility of flickering 9 cards for a 4-drop and get a 3/4 flyer. There's too many upsides.
Yep. Exactly. And with the amount of graveyard recursion and things like that we have, you can potentially get Restoration Angel back from the graveyard as well.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yes.
Rune-Scarred Demon. This is a big boy.
Rune-Scarred Demon. 7-drop again for a 6/6 flyer. Demon. When Rune-Scarred Demon enters the battlefield, search your library for a card. Put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Yes, it's a 7-drop, but it is a tutor. It's potentially something to get back out of the graveyard and use more than once. If you could flicker this, you get to just keep going and getting the correct cards and putting them into your hand, and your opponents don't know what you're putting in your hand.
Yep. And also, here's my thought, all right? In my opinion, Demonic Tutor is the best tutor. It is a 2-drop card. So this
Yes.
this turns this card back down to, if you move the 2 from it, you're paying 5 mana for a 6/6 flyer.
Yes.
That math works.
It does. When I like to put cards in, I want them to do as many things as possible. You don't want to pay 6 for 6/6. If it's a 6/6 with flying, there's 1 bonus. If it's a 6/6 with flying and it's a tutor, that's 2 bonuses. The more bonuses, the better.
I agree with that. All right. Scourge of Meltoth. To be honest, I am not very familiar with this card. But I definitely get what it does and why it would be very useful in this deck.
Again, it's a 7-drop, 5 and 2 black, 6/6 flying. You may cast Scourge of Meltoth from your graveyard by paying 2 black and sacrificing 2 creatures rather than paying its mana cost. Once it hits the battlefield, now from the graveyard, from your graveyard, you have a sack outlet, and it enters the battlefield. Again, it can set up so many of your different triggers when creatures die, when they enter the battlefield. It takes care of it. It checks off multiple things on our decks list.
I completely agree with that.
And who wouldn't sacrifice an 0/1 goat and a 1/1 token to get a 6/6 flyer?
Exactly. I mean, even if you have to sacrifice, non-crap cards to get the 6/6 flyer out, you can do that. If you have a bunch of creatures out, you can recur this thing very easily.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Last 2 is Sower of Discord.
Sower of Discord. 6-drop, 4 and 2 black. Again, a 6/6 flyer. As Sower of Discord enters the battlefield, choose 2 players. Whenever damage is dealt to one of those chosen players, the other chosen player also loses that much life. It's just fun.
And this is a 6-drop, 6/6 flyer with that ability.
Yes.
That's, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And the nice thing is, if this comes out early game, you choose 2 of your opponents. If this comes out later game, when you're down from 4 people down to 3, or even in the best case scenario, 2,
You choose yourself.
you choose yourself. Now, every time you attack me, you take the damage also.
Yep. Now,
It's fun, and it makes people think.
So now a weird question I have with this.
Yes.
This paired with Blood Artist. 1 creature died. Would this ping each opponent for 2 then? Or the people chosen with this?
Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and I gain 1. If I chose 2 other players, target player, I'd ping the 1 for 1. The other player would get hit for that 1. Ooh, is this an infinite end? Let's think about this. Player A and B are the chosen players.
Yep.
A creature dies. I say player A loses 1 life. Player B will automatically lose that life also. Then when player B loses a life, will player A lose it again?
That's what I'm wondering. Is this happen at the same exact time, or is this a triggerable item? If it's a triggerable item, you have basically a Sanguine Bond, Exquisite Bond situation. If it happens at the same exact time, I think it's just a one and done.
Okay, I without digging into this any further, I don't know the answer. I'm sure there's somebody's going to listen to your broadcast here, and somebody's going to have the answer. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Michael on that thought because I know he's going to watch this video. Just be an interesting thought
Yes,
if it does or does not work that way. Because if it does, that's broken.
I'm thinking it doesn't. I'm thinking it does not work that way.
Yep, I agree with that, and that's
It'll
why.
be a one and done.
Yeah, and thing is though, for an infinite combo like that, for 7 mana, I mean, if you look at the very expensive black combo, the Sanguine Bond, Exquisite Blood, those cards are expensive cards, and things have to work out just right. But then once it does happen, the game's over.
Yes.
But yes, all right. The final one you have is Tyrael, Reckoner of Souls.
Now, the reason I chose this one is I was looking for two things to possibly fill a slot with. One is an alternate commander. We have a 7-drop, 4 with 1 white, 1 black, and 1 red. So it could potentially be a secondary commander for you, but it's an expensive casting cost. It's a 4/7 angel, so it is findable by the commander. Flying Vigilance. Tap it, choose a creature card at random from target opponent's graveyard. Put that card onto the battlefield under your control. After it attacks, it's got Vigilance, it's not tapped. Second main phase, you can choose to tap it, choose one at random, put one of your opponent's graveyard creatures onto the battlefield under my control. I hate it when it happens to me, but it's so fun when I get to play with other people's cards.
Yep.
You brought a real nice deck there. Why don't you let me borrow that for a while?
Exactly. And my thought with this is, in Commander, you tap it just on the end step of the person who's before you.
That is another option also, yes.
Because there's only one step before it's your turn and you untap.
Yes. Yes.
Or just before someone's about to exile someone's graveyard. But that's...
Right. Yeah. So those are the cards that I thought that if I were to change the Brawl deck that was given to you into a Commander deck, I would look at these 8 cards. Yes, again, their casting cost is quite high. You might not be able to put them all in, but there's a few options in there that I would definitely like to stick into that deck to give it some teeth. And they do double duty. They don't just come out as an angel, or they don't just come out as a demon. They fit into the secondary synergy of the deck also.
Yep, I completely agree with that. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching this video. Michael, I really did enjoy the deck that you gave. You threw me for a loop when you put the Angels or the Kaalia as a commander, and then you built Sacrifice around it. I thought that was kind of crazy because I was not expecting that. But once I saw the title Sacrificial Seeker, I thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. And I really enjoyed it. It made me think a little bit different than I normally do when I build decks, because normally I build synergies directly around the commander. So, and I think a lot of people do that as well. So it made me think differently of how I would play and how I would do things. But I think we do have ourselves here a pretty decent commander deck, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to play. Other than that, thank everyone for watching the video. Do you want to say bye to everyone?
Yes, thank you for having me on, Colin. I appreciate it, and I enjoyed it.
Oh, no problem at all. I really enjoyed having you on. I know we banter, and I really enjoy how we banter, because we have different thoughts of how we build things, and even though you are my dad, we disagree, and you are not always right.
Oh, don't tell anybody that.
That's okay. It's okay. You can just forget and say you got some timers. It's all good.
And this deck, thinking about this deck, took me out of my normal thought of how I like to build decks. I like Big Stompy.
Yes.
And red, green, black, white, I don't care what color it is. I like Big Stompy.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things in here that made me think a little different in how I would build a deck.
Yeah, delicate.
But you can see at the end when I had 8 options or gave my 8 cards I thought about, again, they're Big Stompy.
They are. Your smallest one was a 3/4, but it was still a 4-drop. So yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. All right, everyone. Well, thank you guys for stopping by. Have yourselves a good day, and Jester out.
Thank you.